Once upon a time, in a bustling city nestled between towering skyscrapers and endless traffic, there lived a young woman named Alina. She was in her late 20s, working a steady but uninspiring job as a graphic designer in a mid-sized advertising firm. Alina had dreams, big ones of starting her own creative studio, traveling the world, and building a life filled with purpose and adventure. But year after year, those dreams seemed to slip further away. She woke up each morning to the same routine. Hit snooze on her alarm, scroll through social media for an hour, grab a sugary coffee on the way to work, grind through the day with half-hearted effort, come home exhausted, binge-watch shows until midnight and repeat. It was comfortable, familiar, but deep down, Alina knew it was a trap. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the wind whispered promises of change, Alina sat on her balcony overlooking the city lights. She reflected on the past decade. Most people won't really live 10 years over the next decade, she thought, echoing words she'd read in a forgotten self-help book. They live 1 year 10 times. That hit her hard. Same habits, same excuses, same level of income, same level of effort. Alina realized she was one of them, repeating patterns, telling herself the same stories about why she couldn't start her business or learn new skills. You can't call that growth, she murmured to herself. You can only call it survival. Standing still wasn't neutral, it was expensive. While Alina stood still, the world moved on. Competitors in her field improved their portfolios with cutting-edge designs. Opportunities evolved with new technologies like AI art tools, and time collected interest on the lessons she refused to learn. The cost was invisible at first, a nagging dissatisfaction, a quiet envy scrolling through others' success stories. But it showed up later as regret. Regret for chances she didn't take, conversations she avoided, skills she never developed. Next year wouldn't be better just because the calendar flipped. January didn't bring magic. It brought more of what she'd been doing, unless she changed. Change was the only insurance against regret. The good news: she didn't have to overhaul everything overnight. She just had to stop standing still. Improvement wasn't a luxury. It was a responsibility she owed to her future self, to be better than she was now, not perfect, just better. The only way to ensure next year rewarded her more was to become someone who deserved more. The seed of improvement was awareness. The moment she stopped saying someday and started saying this day, life would shift. Growth didn't wait for permission. It started when she decided comfort was no longer worth the cost. So Alina asked herself, how many times had she lived the same year? How many New Year's resolutions had she made only to drift back into old patterns? Because the truth was, you don't drift toward success, you drift toward average. Success required direction. If she wanted next year to be different, she had to decide what needed to be different about her. The marketplace didn't care about her hopes, it responded to her value. Her relationships, her health, her income, all reflected who she'd become, not what she'd wished for. The starting line was improvement. Improvement in thought, discipline, focus, execution. The good life wasn't built on luck or timing, it was built on steady, intentional progress. The next 12 months would pass anyway, whether they added to her life or subtracted from it depended on what she did with them. Time wasn't her enemy, it was her amplifier. It multiplied whatever she gave it, wasted and it multiplied regret, invested and it multiplied reward. Standing still cost too much. She chose motion. She chose growth. She chose to build a year that rewarded effort, not excuses. The clock was running, make sure it ran toward something worthwhile. Where did it start? Every improvement began with discipline. Without it, nothing held together. Ambition faded, plans collapsed, motivation disappeared. Discipline was the backbone of progress. Too many people misunderstood it. They thought discipline was punishment. It wasn't. Discipline was training, the bridge between what she wanted and what she got. It connected desire to result. Every success story Alina admired was built on that bridge. Discipline started small. The way she started her morning, the way she spent the first hour of the day, whether she showed up when she said she would, whether she did the thing she promised herself after the excitement faded. Those small acts, repeated daily, shaped a life. Alina used to believe success required massive effort in short bursts, work hard for a few weeks, then relax. But she learned real progress came from steady consistency, daily disciplines, not occasional heroics. Missing a day didn't seem like much. Missing a week felt small. But miss a month and old habits returned to reclaim the ground. Discipline asked for payment up front. Comfort collected payment later with interest. Every time Alina chose the easy path, like skipping her evening walk for another episode, she made a silent agreement to face harder consequences later. Every time she chose discipline, she bought freedom, freedom from regret, from mediocrity, from dependence. She started with one small commitment. Get up when she said she would, read 10 pages every day, save a small portion of her income, move her body for 20 minutes. The action itself wasn't the victory, the habit was. The moment she could trust herself to follow through, she'd built the foundation for every other goal. Discipline wasn't about controlling everything. It was about mastering herself enough to make consistent choices that aligned with her goals. It was the quiet power behind every strong life. The athlete trains when no one is watching. The entrepreneur studies while others play. The leader prepares before the meeting begins. Those weren't dramatic moments, but they separated the good from the great. And here's the truth. No one could give Alina discipline, only she could build it. Others could inspire her, but only she could enforce it. No coach, no mentor, no manager could do her push-ups for her. She had to decide who's in charge, her or her impulses. Discipline gave her confidence. Confidence didn't come from praise or luck. It came from knowing she'd done what's required. When she kept the promises she made to herself, she no longer needed to pretend. She walked with quiet certainty because her habits proved her intent. Most people waited for motivation to act. That was backward. Action created motivation. Discipline started the motion, and momentum kept it alive. Once she built momentum, life became easier. Not because challenges vanished, but because she was stronger than the challenge. So before next year arrived, Alina asked, "What disciplines must I install? What behaviors?" If practiced daily would guarantee growth. She wrote them down, practiced them, guarded them. Because when she lost discipline, she lost direction. Every dream she had depended on this one quality. Self-discipline was the root of self-respect. It was the evidence that she took her future seriously. Without discipline, desire stayed fantasy. With it, it became achievement. Next, Alina improved her focus. Focus determined the quality of her results. The mind was like sunlight, powerful when concentrated, harmless when scattered. Most people never reached their potential because they diffused their attention across too many things. They confused movement with progress, noise with productivity, activity with achievement. Attention was the new currency. Every day, countless distractions competed to withdraw from her mental account, the phone ringing, the inbox filling, the mind drifting. Every interruption cost focus, and every bit of lost focus drained momentum. Improvement began when she started managing attention as carefully as she managed money. She wouldn't hand her wallet to a stranger, yet she'd handed her focus to anything that flashed. Every wasted hour stole from the future she was trying to build. The key wasn't to do more, but to do less better. Clarity multiplied results, confusion divided them. When the mind was divided, effort lost power. A divided effort produced half results, no matter how much energy she spent. Think of a laser and a light bulb. Both use energy, but one cuts through steel while the other barely lights a room. The difference was focus. Life worked the same way. Concentrate energy on what mattered most, and results became extraordinary. This year, Alina decided what truly deserved her attention. Every yes must have 1,000 silent no's behind it. She couldn't chase every opportunity. She couldn't respond to every voice. Every time she said yes to something trivial, like mindless scrolling, she said no to something significant, like working on her portfolio. The world rewarded specialists, not generalists. Mastery demanded focus. Dabblers stayed busy, professionals stayed effective. It was better to master one vital skill, like advanced digital illustration, than to half-learn 20. Because focus didn't just multiply performance, it multiplied time. Here's a truth Alina remembered. Busyness was the enemy of progress. Most people filled their days with tasks that made them feel active but not effective. The goal wasn't to stay busy, it was to stay productive. Every moment spent reacting to noise was a moment stolen from creation. She guarded her mental environment, began the day before the world intruded, thought before turning on the television, read before checking email, reflected before replying, created before consuming. Control what went in, and she'd control what came out. Improvement didn't come from doing more. It came from focusing more sharply. Energy scattered on too many fronts produced exhaustion without progress, but energy directed toward one clear aim built momentum that compounded. Every distraction carried a hidden cost, the delay of her dreams. Each interruption she tolerated stretched the distance between her and her potential. So she learned to protect her focus like treasure, because it was. Next year wouldn't reward the most talented, it would reward the most focused. Attention, when properly managed, could transform ordinary effort into extraordinary success. Before planning her next year, Alina asked, "Where has my attention gone? What deserves it and what doesn't?" Improvement required cutting noise, not adding activity. Success didn't belong to the one who did the most. It belonged to the one who did the right thing long enough without losing sight of the goal. Focus was the multiplier. When she controlled attention, she controlled her future. Here's what else Alina improved: her energy. It was the foundation of all performance. She couldn't build a strong year on a weak body. She couldn't lead others or even herself when she couldn't lead out of fatigue. A tired body dulled ambition. A clear mind inside a healthy body created momentum. Her body was the engine that drove her dreams. When the engine ran poorly, every other part of life slowed down. She thought slower, acted slower, decided slower. And slow responses in a fast world cost opportunities. Alina used to think success required only mental toughness, but energy was more than physical. It was emotional, mental, and spiritual strength combined. When her energy was low, everything looked difficult. When it was high, everything looked possible. The first investment for next year wasn't a new goal, it was renewed vitality. Without energy, even good intentions collapsed. With it, even small efforts compounded. She started with sleep. Most people treated it like a nuisance, but sleep was the reset button for the mind. She couldn't grind through exhaustion forever. The body collected every unpaid debt of rest. Eventually, it sent the bill in the form of burnout, illness, or lost clarity. The most productive people weren't those who never rested. They were those who rested strategically. Then came nutrition. The body couldn't run on junk and stress. Food wasn't just pleasure, it was fuel. Poor fuel meant poor focus. She ate for performance, not for comfort. What she consumed either strengthened her system or slowed it down. Small adjustments compounded over time, just like financial investments. And then movement. The body was designed to move. When she moved, she circulated energy, strengthened discipline, reminded herself that motion created momentum. A walk, a stretch, a few minutes of deliberate exercise each day, it all added up. It wasn't about perfection, it was about consistency. Energy management was more important than time management. She could have 12 hours available, but if her energy was gone, her hours were useless. Guard energy like capital. Spend it on what multiplied it, avoid what drained it. Even emotions affected energy. Worry, anger, resentment, they were expensive, draining power faster than physical work. Gratitude, on the other hand, renewed energy. So did enthusiasm, purpose, and laughter. They restored what the day took away. Next year would require more from her. More focus, more creativity, more stamina. She couldn't expect to rise if her energy stayed low. She couldn't perform at her best with a body constantly asking for help. So she took care of it, fed it right, rested it well, moved it daily. And she watched how every other area of life improved. Better energy meant better thoughts. Better thoughts led to better actions. Better actions produced better results. A strong body supported a strong mind, and together they created strong outcomes. Neglect the body and the mind paid the price. Nurture both and she multiplied her advantage. The body didn't need perfection, it needed consistency. Treat it like a partner, not a prisoner. It wasn't about image, it was about endurance. Because she couldn't change the world if she couldn't get out of bed. So before next year began, she built her foundation, energy first. Everything else rested on it. Next, Alina improved her financial knowledge. Money was a mirror. It reflected her habits, not her hopes. It told the truth about her discipline, priorities, and thinking. She couldn't improve her life without improving how she handled money. Financial improvement didn't come from luck. It came from control. If she didn't control money, money would control her. Most people didn't have an income problem, they had a management problem. They earned, spent, forgot, then wondered why nothing grew. Wealth didn't come from what she made, it came from what she kept. The habit of keeping part of all she earned was the seed of independence. The moment she started saving, she started owning her future. She stopped trading peace of mind for paychecks. Improvement began by finding and fixing leaks. The small leaks sank the big ships. A few dollars here, a quick impulse there, a recurring expense never reviewed. Every careless purchase stole from something more important, her freedom. She tracked her spending, not to restrict herself but to understand herself. Where her money went, her attention followed. Debt was another silent drain. There was good debt and expensive debt. Borrowing to build capacity could be smart. Borrowing to satisfy impulse was not. Interest was the reward she paid for impatience. She learned to delay gratification long enough for her future to thank her. Replace emotional spending with intentional investing. Don't buy to impress, buy to progress. Every purchase should either improve her capacity, extend her reach, or enrich her life meaningfully. If it did none, skip it. She'd never regret money she didn't waste. Financial growth began in the mind. The broke mentality said, "You can't afford it." The wealth mentality said, "How can you afford it?" The first closed possibility, the second opened it. She learned to think like a builder, not a consumer. Builders multiplied, consumers drained. Her habits around money created her financial destiny. Handle a small amount poorly and more would only magnify the problem. Handle it wisely and she prepared for larger responsibility. She learned the basics, budgeting, saving, investing. She didn't need to be an expert, but she had to be intentional. A plan, even a small one, beat drifting. The goal wasn't luxury, it was stability. Once stable, she could expand. And here's something most forgot: money grew for those who respected time. The earlier she started saving, the more time multiplied her efforts. Compounding wasn't magic, it was discipline meeting patience. Don't envy others' possessions. Most of what looked rich wasn't. Real wealth was quiet, it showed up as freedom of time, peace of mind, and the ability to help others. The car faded, but freedom endured. So as the year closed, she took inventory, knew where her money went, plugged the leaks, built a cushion, created a plan. When next year began, her finances reflected wisdom, not emotion. Money, when managed well, became a servant that built her dreams. When mismanaged, it became a master that stole them. The choice was always hers. Next year wouldn't bless those who wished. It would bless those who planned. The next one was extremely important if she wanted a successful year. She had to not only improve but protect her environment. Her environment shaped her direction. The people she spent time with, the conversations she entertained, the standards she accepted. All of it formed the atmosphere in which her future grew or died. She couldn't improve her life while staying in relationships that sapped her. Every association carried influence. Some lifted her, some held her, some quietly drained her. Improvement required awareness. She asked, "Who brings energy into my life and who takes it away? Who challenges me to grow and who tempts me to settle?" Because the wrong circle could make the right goals impossible. Nothing affected ambition like the company she kept. A weak environment would convince her that average was good enough. Stay in it long enough and she'd begin defending mediocrity. But surround herself with people who expected excellence, and she'd start expecting it from herself. Improvement here meant pruning. It meant having the courage to step away from relationships that kept her small. It didn't mean judging others, it meant protecting her potential. Growth demanded space, and sometimes she had to clear that space herself. Choose to spend time with people who made her better simply by being around them. Those who talked about ideas, not gossip. Those who planned futures, not complained about circumstances. Those who reminded her of discipline, not distraction. Her environment extended beyond people. What she read, what she watched, where she worked, how she spent free time. Everything that entered her mind shaped it. If she filled it with negativity, she'd think small. If she fed it with wisdom, she'd think strong. She couldn't plant roses in concrete and expect them to bloom. The soil mattered, so did the climate, so did the care. Her potential needed the same, an atmosphere of encouragement, challenge, and belief. There was also the environment inside her own mind. The thoughts she rehearsed daily either built walls or opened doors. Improvement required curating those thoughts just as she curated her relationships. If she wanted to live better, think better. Evaluate her circle honestly. Who was she learning from? Who held her accountable? Who would tell her the truth even when uncomfortable? Growth thrived on honest mirrors, not flattering voices. If her current environment didn't support her next level, she'd need to outgrow it. That might mean less time with certain people, less exposure to certain conversations, more time in solitude, study, and reflection. Solitude wasn't loneliness. It was construction time for the mind. The strongest people weren't those who isolated from the world, but those who carefully designed their world. They chose associations that fed purpose. They built environments that made success easier, not harder. So before next year began, Alina cleaned her environment, removed what weakened her, strengthened what built her, created a space where excellence felt normal and growth felt natural. She rose or fell to the level of her surroundings. Build an environment worthy of her potential. Next year would not reward potential, it would reward competence. The world didn't pay for what she could do, it paid for what she did do. Skill was the great divider between those who wished and those who won. The marketplace was fair in one way. It didn't respond to need, it responded to value. If she wanted more, she had to become more valuable. And value was built through learning. Practice and refinement. The day she stopped learning was the day she started losing ground. Every skill she mastered multiplied opportunity. Every skill she neglected limited it. The question wasn't whether she had talent. The question was whether she trained it. Talent was potential. Skill was proof. Too many people wanted better results without better ability. They wanted promotion without preparation, reward without refinement. But the marketplace didn't operate on hope. It operated on performance. And performance came from competence, not chance. She studied her field, learned the details, knew more than she was paid to know. That extra knowledge compounded, it built a reputation. People noticed those who took their craft seriously. Learning didn't stop at school. In fact, real learning began after. The classroom gave foundation, but life gave application. She had to read, observe, and test ideas daily. A book, a seminar, a mentor, each added a layer of insight that separated her from the crowd. Skills weren't static. What worked today might fade tomorrow. That's why adaptability was a skill itself. Keep learning so she could keep adjusting. When she stayed current, she stayed relevant. And relevance was the new security. The person who kept learning never feared change. When skilled, change became opportunity. When unskilled, change became threat. The difference was preparation. And don't forget, learning compounded when shared. Teaching what she knew reinforced it. Discuss ideas, not just experiences. When she articulated what she'd learned, she clarified it for herself. Improvement didn't mean collecting random information. It meant directed learning. Study with purpose. Choose subjects that aligned with her future, not just interests. It was pleasant to know many things, but powerful to master a few. If she wanted to be ready for next year, she asked, which skills would matter most? What abilities would make her indispensable? What knowledge would double her value? Those answers pointed the way forward. Start small. One new book each month, one course, one deliberate practice session. Over a year, that became transformation. The difference between those who improved and those who repeated wasn't luck. It was consistent learning applied daily. Knowledge without use was just potential energy. Applied knowledge changed everything. The bridge between knowing and doing was practice. Keep crossing it. The best investment she'd ever make was in her own skill set. Markets rose and fell, but competence endured. The more skilled she became, the more freedom she earned, because skill gave options and options gave leverage. Before next year began, she decided which part of her craft needed sharpening. Learn it, practice it, own it, because when the next opportunity came, and it would, the prepared would always outperform the hopeful. Competence created confidence. Keep learning until what was once difficult became natural. Then learn again. Growth never ended. Alina's future was built quietly by her habits, not in bursts of motivation, but in the slow rhythm of what she did every day. People wanted change yet kept their routines the same, but nothing changed until daily actions changed. Habits were the architects of destiny. They shaped character, health, income, and confidence. She didn't rise to the level of her goals, she fell to the level of her systems. Goals gave direction, habits built the road. Without the road, the destination remained fantasy. Every habit either served her future or stole from it. The danger was that most operated without awareness. They ran on autopilot. She woke, wasted time, rushed, repeated. Improvement began when she interrupted that loop and asked, "Does this routine still serve who I want to become?" Audit her days. Watch where time went. Observe what she did first in the morning and last before bed. Those moments revealed true priorities, not the ones written down, but the ones lived. Successful people weren't necessarily more talented, they simply ran better routines. They'd replaced randomness with rhythm. Each day had structure, each action reinforced the next. That consistency compounded faster than effort that came and went. Here's the truth: habits created identity. The more she repeated an action, the more she believed it belonged to her. Read daily, and soon she saw herself as a learner. Exercise regularly, and she saw herself as disciplined. Every habit strengthened or weakened the story she told herself. Change a habit and she changed that story. But the shift started small. Don't attempt to overhaul life overnight. Add one small good habit, remove one small bad one. Consistency mattered more than intensity. Discipline built habits, but once formed, they sustained discipline. It was easier to act her way into new thinking than think her way into new acting. The body learned faster than the mind when repetition became routine. Guard her morning, it set the tone for the day. Guard her evening, it determined recovery and reflection. Guard what happened between, because those small hours added up to a life. And don't forget, bad habits were easy to form and hard to live with. Good habits were hard to form but easy to live with. She could pay now or pay later, but she'd pay. The wise paid early through discipline. The foolish paid later through regret. The smallest habits created the biggest difference. 5 minutes of gratitude rewired perspective. 10 minutes of planning prevented hours of chaos. A brief daily review corrected course before months drifted off track. Design habits deliberately like an architect designs a building. Don't let them happen by accident. She couldn't build excellence on randomness. Routine didn't restrict her, it freed her. When good habits ran her day, her mind stayed free for creativity and opportunity. So before next year began, Alina decided, what habits must stay, what must go, what must begin. The future she wanted was hiding in the actions she repeated. Change the routine and the results would follow. Habits didn't just create success, they sustained it. Build routines that served her vision, and next year would reward her for what she'd practiced daily, not what she'd promised occasionally. Things would go wrong. Plans would fall apart, people would disappoint, markets would shift. That was life. The question wasn't whether trouble would come, it was whether she'd stay steady when it did. Resilience was the difference between those who finished strong and those who gave up early. The mind was her greatest asset or greatest liability. She couldn't control what happened, but she could control what it meant. The same event that broke one person could build another, depending on mindset. The difference lay not in circumstance but in interpretation. Most people reacted. They let emotion drive response. But reacting burned energy and clouded judgment. Improvement meant learning to respond instead, to pause, think, choose. A strong mind didn't panic, it evaluated. Resilience wasn't toughness without feeling, it was strength with perspective, the ability to take a hit without losing purpose. When something failed, the resilient mind asked, "What can this teach me?" Not "Why me?" Life didn't get easier, she got stronger. Every challenge had two sides, pain and potential. If she only saw pain, she lost the lesson. If she saw the lesson, she gained growth. The lesson always paid more than the struggle cost. Adversity introduced her to herself. She didn't truly know her capacity until life tested it. Hard times revealed what comfort hid. That's why she welcomed resistance. It wasn't her enemy, it was her training partner. Without resistance, there was no growth. The quality of her mindset determined the quality of her future. A fixed mind saw limits. A growth mind saw leverage. A fixed mind feared failure. A growth mind studied it. If she believed everything happened to her, she'd stay a victim. If she believed everything happened for her, she'd become a student. Resilient people didn't expect life to be fair. They expected it to be a test, and they prepared daily. They fed their mind with principles, not emotions. They anchored decisions in discipline, not mood. When operating from principle, she stayed steady no matter what. When from emotion, she lived in chaos. Emotions changed hourly. Principles endured. They became the compass when visibility was low. She built resilience before the storm, not during. Daily habits like reading, journaling, exercising, reflection strengthened mental endurance. They stored emotional energy for days when life demanded it. Gratitude built resilience too. It was hard to stay bitter while counting blessings. Gratitude turned difficulty into data. It helped see what remained instead of what's missing. So before next year began, Alina toughened her mind, practiced detachment from outcomes and attachment to effort. Control what she could, relay.